In this next video tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how you can use PowerShell to determine where a user has certain rights on your SharePoint environment. So for example, if you want to determine on the root web of a certain site collection to what lists and library specific user has access to, and also what type of access he has, this script will produce a report and tell you exactly the type of access and where this user has access to your SharePoint site. So let's get into the code. First thing, as always, is you had the PS snap-ins for Microsoft SharePoint PowerShell. This will allow you to use some of these SharePoint connectlets that are predefined. Then what we're going to do is we're going to prompt the user for two parameters. The first one is the URL of the web application. So our script is going to go in, take one web application, loop through all site collections, through all webs, and then through all lists to determine where the user has access. Then we're going to prompt the user for the username, obviously, right? So we enter a username, and this is the user the script will be looking for. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use the get SP web application connectlet, passing it the URL that the user just entered. So this is going to give us a reference to the web application. The report variable is just going to contain everything that's related to the user access. We're just going to build on that string variable, and then a new line character here that we're going to use to produce our report having one entry per line. We're going to go right on screen, just a bit of feedback saying we're creating a report for, and then the username that was entered with blue background and white text. And this is really the meat of our script. So we're going to be looping through every single site collection in the web application. Then we're going to be looping through all webs in each of the site collections. For each web, we're going to call the ensure user. So this is just going to return us a reference to an SP user object, and this is what we're going to need in order to determine where the user has access to. So we're getting a user variable. We're actually getting the SP user and putting it in a user variable. Then what we're going to do is we're going to be looping through all the lists. And if the permissions were already found in the current web, we're just going to set a variable to false. The reason for this is that if the user doesn't have any access whatsoever on a certain site, we just don't want to go and print an entry for that web in there in our final reports, right? We only want to get where the user has access to. So if this is false at the end, we're just not going to add the current web to our report. Now we loop through every list, and then this is something that I was debating whether or not I should add to my script, but basically I'm skipping over all the hidden lists. So if the list is hidden, like hidden lists will normally be reserved lists for SharePoint. I mean, you have a way of specifying programmatically if you want to hide a list or not. But by default, every list that you will grant your users, not by default, but I mean 99.9% of the time, the list won't be hidden. So we're going to skip over hidden lists. And this is really where we're going to get information about where the user has access to. So we're going to take our list. We're going to call the role assignment property, which is going to give us a list of every users and every type of access they have to that list there. So role assignment, and then we're going to call the get assignment by principal method, passing it the user object that we had. We're going to declare a new variable called current binds. So the role definition bindings are going to be stored in this here. A role definition binding really is a mapping between this user and a type of permission. So for example, Nick contribute to that list. We're going to be looping through every single role assignment that we have. Then for every role, we're going to get the role definition bindings. Then we're going to loop again in the bindings, and we're just going to get the name of each binding and adding that to our current binds variable. Then if the current binds are not equal to null, so if we found some bindings for our user, and if we haven't already added the web entry to our report, so we don't want to have the web listed more than once, we're going to go in here and add to our report the URL of the web that we're currently looking for. Then after that, we're going to add a new line. We're going to set this variable actually to true. we're going to go add a new line, and then to the report, we're going to add the list title, an arrow, and then the current permission that the user has, and then add just another new line. And very important, at the end, we're going to dispose of the current web and of the current site collection. Because when you're looping through SharePoint objects, such as site and web, these are taking a lot of resources in memory on the server. So you want to make sure that you dispose them, you force the dispose of the object once you're done using them. And then at the end, we're just going to print our report. So we're now ready to go and run our script. I'm going to execute it, type in the URL of my localhost. So by typing this here, I'm actually specifying web application on port 80 because I don't have a column port whatever, and this site collection or root web here is running on the SharePoint 80 web application. Use this, then I'm going to use the username for my John Smith user. It's going to go through it. Tell me that it's creating a report for John Smith, giving me the URL of my web. Currently, I only have one web, but every web I would have on that site collection or on that web application would be listed there. Then it goes through every list. So content and structure reports. My user has limited access. My user has read access to the documents and limited access to the rest of the documents, library, and list on that web. So hopefully you guys managed to learn a bit more about how you can use PowerShell to determine permissions for users on your SharePoint form. And until next time.